¿Estamos listos para el podcast? Aquí comienza el podcast Nodo del Campus de Desarrollo Creativo.
Voces Nodo tiene hoy dos invitados de gran escala. El primero, Karim Ben Khelifa, periodista, fotógrafo y creador transdisciplinario belga, reconocido por sus trabajos inmersivos como The Enemy y 7 Grams. También nos acompaña María Cristina Bayas, docente de la carrera de periodismo y directora de programas de maestría en la Universidad de las Américas, quien aportará una mirada académica sobre los desafíos éticos y narrativos del periodismo en contextos de guerra. La entrevista será en inglés, ya que nuestro invitado no habla español, pero exploraremos temas que sin duda nos invitan a reflexionar más allá de los idiomas, como la ética, la desinformación y el poder de las nuevas tecnologías para contar historias humanas. Thank you, Karim, for being here, and thank you, Maria Cristina, as well. Karim, I wanted to start this conversation by asking you, why did you choose war as a topic throughout your career as a journalist?
Thank you for inviting me to start with. I'm very happy to be here. As the reason to choose war, I think many faults. You don't go to war for one specific reason. But the most important one are curiosity, a sense of purpose, trying to find something that I was hoping would be helpful to the understanding of our world, and trying to see if I was cut for this. Mm-hmm. So it's all about starting. And as I had a bit earlier a one-on-one with some of your students, it is as simple as to go. Mm-hmm. It's nothing that prepares you for war. There is no study. I don't think any university can teach what you're going to be encountering and how to move in those areas. So it's about going and trying out and see if you can handle that and produce a work that is interesting.
Maria Cristina, we've seen this massive wave of misinformation throughout this period of time where war has been a really important topic nowadays. Why do you think people are so quick to believe in this false information and spread it online?
Well, I guess that with war and other crises, human crises, people can be more vulnerable. And there's another phenomenon going on that is, and it's paradoxical because we are in the era of more information. You can look for any information you want, get informed in a very deep and profound way, but that's not the case. What tends to happen is people get in echo chambers, and follow accounts and get in places where they can get the information they already believe in, So that's an echo of my own beliefs, of my own emotions and opinions, and that's sad because what we get is a very polarized world in an era where we could have a different context, But there's no dialogue. I think there's a little dialogue between these groups, and in war, the sentiments, the emotions and opinions get harder, because then comes like groups of people that want to say, I am in the right side, I am right, my opinion is right. And that's kind of narcissistic because you are not looking at victims, you are not looking at what is going on in reality, but in social media, just like, I am in the right side, I'll share this, I'll repost this. And lots of that information is not true, it's not verified, but it is redundant with my opinion and beliefs, so I'll share it, People won't take the time to verify and to understand who's the transmitter, what's the context, don't have those abilities, just the ability of having emotions and wanting to be in the right side of the story, And well, that's very sad, but that's what's going on in socially speaking,
And it has a name. It's confirmation bias.
Karin, talking about a little bit more about this, how can journalists balance today the need for speed and audience engagement with verifying and spreading the truth?
Oh, I think it's a huge challenge, and it comes with great risk because speed is the opposite of depth. You need time to investigate, you need time to understand the context. Another pitfall is really sending people who have not experienced a situation before, who lack the knowledge, lack the the depth, to access really the core of the story. Context often is lost or presented according to confirmation bias, as you explained. So there is a lot of challenge here, and what I would recommend is really more for the leadership and less for the journalist. Journalists have often and historically asked for more time. Leadership has asked for less time, more speed, and the ecosystem today of news requires speed. I think it's an education. Media literacy could be very helpful. That starts at school and not necessarily at the university, but even earlier. And developing critical minds is also key, not only for the public, but also for the journalists themselves. All of those are, some sort of tools that can be used to mitigate the risk of speed against depth.
How can journalism education prepare these reporters to make these hard decisions under pressure?
Well, I think, first of all, they'll have to have the habit of verifying, and making that pause, even though the process is just like goes on and on and in a high speed. But first of all, teach them verifying like outlets. In Ecuador, we have Ecuador Chequea, Lupa Media. Well, we know about them, but in the States, for example, we have the Washington Post with the Pinocchios and all the scales of how false a certain information is, or Pointer Institute. Well, we have even had a course with Pointer Institute with our students for them to be prepared with those tools. So looking at verifiers, also knowing the tools to verify images, information. But I think that before doing the technical stuff comes, fighting the confirmation bias. Students need to get uncomfortable. They need to challenge their own certainties. Like there's a thing called certainty and there's a thing called true. And maybe they are not the same. Your certainties, they're not truths. You think you're correct, but you need to challenge that every single day to look for facts and things that are correct. I think that comes in the daily practice with the students, so they have the habit of questioning themselves and everything they have access to.
Karim, I wanted to ask you another question about journalism. Do you believe, and from your experience, do you consider journalism has fallen into a spectacle category in some way?
Yes, but it's been like this for a very long time. I think the multiplication of media, the way social media are used today to inform people is extremely problematic. And I wrote a critical essay on that, finding absolutely obscene the way we consume war through social media. You have a breakfast of an influencer that you discover what he eats, how he looks like, and then you have a missile strike somewhere in the world, and then you have an ad for an electrical car. And all those things are treated the same, are using the same space, while we're becoming numb to the suffering of others. So what I'm really trying to do through my work is to shorten the distance in between wars and the public. But for this, I've left traditional journalism, not to say that it's not useful, and I think journalism is essential to democracy. But in my own practice, I've went through that already, and I've become more interested in revealing dimensions of war that people are not talking about, humanity in between two fighters. What's remaining of humanity in common between two fighters? What's the reality of a missile strike? And for this, I've left traditional journalism and I've stepped into experiential. One hand, we could say experiential journalism. I would say just experience in a way. I'm a non-fiction artist, and I'm really trying to use all the tools that I can. And if I've done that step, it's to leave the ethics of journalism and to be able to remain in the non-fiction, remain in the reality, but use completely different tools in order to transfer that reality to the public.
Talking about this spectacle, we were talking about this phenomenon called Bollywood, right? What do you think about this? What can you say?
Well, as we said before, like in war, there are many transmitters, many information going on, lots of fake news, and because people are with this patriotism inside or different stances and very strong stances, well, these things can happen. But of course, this phenomenon, I don't know if you have heard about Bollywood, is that like these fake videos in the war between Hamas and Israel, where a concrete group of Palestinians were creating videos like of scenes of murders and tragedy, but they were fake. They were created. They were productions. So I think that, for example, to students, when we analyze this kind of phenomenons, is that they analyze who is transmitting the message. First of all, it is not the same. Who is this? Is it a government? Is it a news outlet? Is it a social group? Well, in this case, it was like kind of an activist group inside Palestine that I believe was ruining a legitimate cause inside Palestine in the war. That I think that's what happened with a spectacle. We are like making a show out of everything in detriment of true victims. And that is sad. I think that for students, it is for them to identify who is speaking, who is sending the message, what possible interests they might have, economic interests, political interests, social interests, but then have this filter before interpreting. You have to make this analysis beforehand.
Karim, let's talk about your project, The Enemy.
Yeah.
In The Enemy, you bring audiences face-to-face to soldiers from opposing sides. Do you believe that this can, like virtual reality and these types of technology, can foster empathy or maybe change perceptions of war?
Absolutely, yeah, you can. But technology are tools. You can use one kind of camera. You can use another kind. You can use VR. You can use augmented reality. I would quote Noam Chomsky here, who says technology is completely agnostic. If you take a hammer, you can build a house. You can destroy a house too. So it's really on the intention of the storyteller, the journalist or the artist who's behind the tool, to bring a level of credibility and to bring a level of experiential, in my case, to make that a powerful experience. Yes, you can foster empathy, but you can also do the opposite. You can also divide. And that's been the case with the Rohingya, for example, in Bangladesh, in Burma, where virtual reality was used to dehumanize another group. So all those tools are dependent on the people who are behind. And if you abide by numbers of ethics, or if you work for legitimate publications, I think all of those are helpful because you need to go through a numbers of filters that kind of bring credibility to your work.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this process of collecting these stories or gaining these stories?
Well, it's about, first of all, it comes from the reality of my experience on the ground when I was a war correspondent, when I would go from one side to the other, and I would realize that I might have different political opinions about the conflict or see it differently, but I could not erase the humanity that each of those fighters had within themselves when I'm talking one-on-one with them. They were talking about their children, they were talking about their family, they were talking about the basic sense of humanity, what makes us human. And when I would cross the conflict line, the front line, and I would go on the other side, I could have the exact same conversation. So I thought this is something we're not talking about enough. And if we talk about war, we can also talk about reconciliation. In order to kill, you need to dehumanize. And that's a very easy process. The hard process is to rehumanize on the other side. And for me, it starts with what is common between you and I, and between you and I, and between all of us. We all carry some sort of basic humanity. And if you can put that out, if you can make it tangible, then you get to a point where you can start having a shift of perception and eventually a shift of behavior, which is the ultimate cognitive change we're all after as storytellers and working in a non-fiction realm.
But how can you, you're saying it's easier to dehumanize, but like difficult to give humanity back to your enemy, to your opposer, how can communicators, artists, journalists, like through content or experiences, like technically do that? How would you, like, give us an example of how would you
I'll give
that?
the example of the enemy, where I'm putting face to face two enemies and I'm asking them exactly the same numbers of questions, the same questions. The first set of questions is about the other. Who's your enemy? Did you ever kill him? And why is he your enemy? But that set of questions is about the otherness. It's about the other. So most likely, we're not going to be surprised by the answer. Then I ask them another set of questions. What is violence to you? What is peace to you? Where do you see yourself in 20 years from now? And this is where they talk about their own dreams, their own fears. And this is where you realize they're very similar from one side to the other. And this is where you can, without forcing it, let what is common appear, without pushing it down the throat of the visitor or the viewer, but by leaving a sense of agency for the viewer to decide for themselves. And I think we always talk about journalism having a need to be impartial, to be in the middle, to present all aspects. The reality is it's really hard to do. I have opinion. And on a very same subject, you can bring a Chinese journalist, an American journalist, an Ecuadorian journalist, a German journalist, and myself. And the facts are the same. The interpretation will be different because we come from different culture. We look at things differently. Yet, even though I don't believe in impartiality at all, that's what I've tried to do with the enemy. And I think that's the closest example of impartiality because I'm not telling what people should think. I'm presenting them with two different opposed opinions that eventually becomes the same. But it's for them to judge. It's not me that pushed that to them.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more on the project you brought to Mediamorphosis, 7 grams. Yeah. 7 grams is this project that uses augmented reality to expose the human cost of our smartphones. What did you learn about technology being this powerful tool to let people feel rather than just see a story?
I will back up a little bit because that's, I think, very interesting for your students. Usually, as a I'll take my example. As a photojournalist, I have a project I want to do. Let's say some sort of injustice I want to highlight and present to the public. I will have a magazine, so I'll have a medium. And that medium will have an audience. With 7 grams, I decided to change that. I have this project, Injustice of Artisanal Miners in Eastern Congo. I want to highlight this. But instead of choosing a medium, I said, who should be aware of that? Who can make a difference? So my audience came before the medium. And then once I've identified the target audience, primary and secondary target audience, I'm investigating that audience. Which medium are they on? Happens they are on smartphones. And so this way, I can go around and I can present this and reach the public in a way that is not using the medium for what it's good, but using the medium for their reach and putting the audience first. And that includes, in the process of designing such a work, bringing my audience in the design process. Because I don't know exactly how the 1724 would consume that. I don't have all the answers. I have an assumption. I have an intention with the project. But the best designer are going to be the people who will receive it, my target audience. So bring them on very early into your work, bringing the stakeholders, bringing the artisanal miners into that conversation too. How do you want to be presented? What would you like your life to change? It's not for me to assume this is an injustice. It's visible for everyone, but it's also for those people to decide how they want to fix that injustice, and me helping them going there. So solution journalism is a very good avenue for this, but it requires to bring a lot of people on the table, and it requires completely to get rid of confirmation bias, all your assumption, and to be ready to put everything away and to restart with a clean table, but with the people who you're going to be talking about and with the people who you are going to talk with.
Talking about journalism and war, I wanted to ask you, Maria Cristina, how do you think we can help young reporters to know what to show and what to leave out in this difficult context of war?
Well, there is like these common standards, journalism standards in terms of ethics. You know, and every news outlet or media private news project has their own code code of ethics, but I think there are like general things that we can assume. Just put yourself in their place, you know, in the victim's place or in the family's place. You want what is this going to be useful for the purpose or the intention, you know, or not, just as for the spectacle. So you want to make that analysis before you publish, you know. And there are many ethical problems that come out of in times of war, because people are emotional, you know, and you're touching sacred things for everyone. So you have to be very careful of what you say and what you show as well. Image is powerful, of course, it's more powerful than words, but it doesn't mean that words are not powerful at all. So you have to complement all the elements and analyze before publishing. But I also think you have to. It is not only what you show, I think, but how vulnerable or powerless people are, and be careful about that, because you don't know. I have seen like many wars are about religion, for example. How it originated, how it touches people's feelings or beliefs. You have to be careful with that as well. I think that this is like this pretended inclusiveness in our actual society. I don't think that is actually so true. I think that in different areas we choose different people we want to include and different people we want to exclude, you know? So who is being included today and who's being excluded today? It's not so true that that we are inclusive. No. And it is not true that we are tolerant with everyone. It's that we have chosen what ideas are the ones that we want to stick with and the ones that we want to reject. I don't think there's like this open mind actually like going on. And so there are minorities or ideas that are not so popular, depending the times, and we have to be careful with that, because maybe these minorities and dissidents are not incorrect. Maybe they have truths, like that they are speaking truths, you know. That was Stuart Mill like so long ago, saying that we have to listen to minorities or with peoples that have not the popular ideas, you know, because they might be saying something that we might learn from, and that might be useful for democracy and for society. So I think that this analysis beforehand, and also being careful with ethics and how to handle the different groups we are talking about in such tragic situations as war, is definitely part of the process, you know. Not just getting things done fast and verify facts. I think that the journalist, of course, is a human activity, but reflects humanity. It reflects human situations that are so delicate that we have to manage that in a delicate way as well.
I think it's a good example of a critical mind.
Yes, exactly. As someone who has covered conflict firsthand, what are one of the biggest ethical dilemmas you faced? And also I wanted to ask you, how do you manage to work on your emotions in such emotionally charged context?
I think the biggest ethical challenge that I've encountered is when you go to a war, and for me, in my case, as a photojournalist, I'm going to make photos. Why would someone who's lost his house, who's probably a refugee on the road, or who's lost family members, would accept me there and to photograph their reality? And that's what I'm talking about, is a moral contract. It's not something that is spoken with the subject, but that person would accept my presence and my work because they do believe I can make a difference. The reality is I can't. I can't change the life of the person I photograph. And this is a moral dilemma that I've realized about 10 years into my work and my career. and a dilemma of trying to challenge and try to investigate by bringing a different perspective on what I did. In that case, I stopped photographing, stopped going to war in the way I was doing before, and I stepped from the front line. I stepped away from the immediacy and the violence that we can see there to go deeper. And in the case of the enemy, is to talk about something we don't talk about, what's left of humanity in between different people. In the case of 7 grams, it's the injustice of those artisanal miners squeezed in a supply chains with $1 trillion company exploiting them indirectly. And us carrying a responsibility into that injustice. So it's a way to try to change the paradigms of this moral and ethical dilemma.
And from your side as an educator in journalism, what would you say are the biggest ethical dilemmas that you faced as an educator?
Well, of course, the truth comes first always, but I think that I just said that, like how you treat people that are different from you, otherness, and how you, like, of course, verification. But I think there's a lot of humbleness that needs to come back to journalists in general. I think that we need to criticize to our own area, to our own field, because people want to be right. I just said before, people want to be right and to, I don't know, just be right. And I think that when you investigate, that's it. Putting aside what you think is correct, what you thought that is common sense. Well, maybe not, maybe for you, but not for everyone. So putting that aside and just investigating and proving yourself wrong so many times when you just began your investigation and then you realize, oh, I was not right, I was wrong. That's okay. That is ethical, being humble. Being humble in everyday practice in journalism is I can name you all the journalism standards, and ethics. I think those are known, but I think humbleness is not enough. It's not being talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I that's what I wanted to highlight. Yeah.
And to end, Karim, what would you say is your main purpose in your work as a photojournalism?
Well, I'm not a photojournalist anymore, so I can't answer as a photojournalist. But my main purpose is my ability to go to war and to bring a dimension that people are not aware of and to transform that into an experience. And so move from a more distant storytelling, from the one who says and the one who will listen, to something that is more embodied, where there is a sense of agency from the visitor, the ability to make a choice. All of this requires design, requires a bit of experience, requires humility, and being true to your intention at the start, being willing to change the road in order to get there, but to keep your intention there, and to design with the viewer, with the visitor, with the reader in mind all the time. So that requires a bit of an exercise, but I think this is where you can find some sort of balance in, if we can call it reporting. In my case, I would call it more art, but find a sense of closure there.
Maria Cristina, is there something you want to add?
No, nothing. Just thank you, Karim, for being here, for being in our channel and talking to our students, faculty, and giving us your work as an example of purpose, intention, and, well, just shifting the models, the traditional models with working well. You're a great example, and thank you for being
Thank you very much. And I would like just to add, I'm not working for a big organization. I'm on my own. And I want your student to know that they can do things on their own too. It's sometimes very difficult when you're a young journalist and you enter an institution that you need to find your space. You need to find, and you're going to be with more experienced people. So it's going to be hard to impose your voice. But if you make that choice, just stay true to you and true to your initial intention. Why did you become a journalist to start with? Well, why you wanted to do that? Keep that in mind all the way along as you're going to grow, as you maybe become a leader in that field also. And if you choose the road alone, as I did, it's possible. You can do really, really big projects. It's just about acquiring the right experience and stay true again, wherever you do, stay true to your intention and to your values and being willing to be critical, humble, and to change along the way. And I want to thank you also for the invitation because I'm getting at a stage in my life where I'm very happy to share all of those.
Thank you, Karim. And
Great
thank you, Maria
advice.
Cristina, for this meaningful conversation. We've talked about technology, journalism, and ethical dilemmas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en este episodio de Voces Nodo y nos vemos en el próximo.